We are currently down 1 bar, so somewhere between 90 and 81%. I guess I'm getting closer to the 80% mark, and I am 2,300 feet of climbing in, which is honestly blowing my mind. This is actually the first time I've ever pedaled up this. I've always pushed my bike. Again, I'm in my granny gear and my heart rate's pegged, but I'm at least pedaling up this. A little helping hand effect. It is pretty neat. I can't see.
It's so hard to talk right now because I'm so tired because I just rode not an e-bike all day. My helmet looked normal. Orbea has always been at the forefront of the SL lightweight e-bike category. The Rise model was one of the first bikes to really push the concept that you can have an e-bike that's pretty lightweight, has decent power, and it maintains similar ride characteristics to that of a regular mountain bike. Today, we are getting a first look at the next evolution of this less is more concept with Orbea's new Rallon RS. However, this isn't an SL e-bike in the traditional sense. It does have a motor and a battery, but it is fully positioned to ride and feel like an analog bike. This probably isn't going to be a bike that's for everybody, but it does offer a lot to talk about as it challenges how we currently incorporate electric assistance into the experience of mountain biking. The Rallon RS is a blend of what Orbea has learned with its Rise and Rallon models. It takes the capabilities of the Rallon suspension design and geometry, and then it combines it with the innovative mentality and the integration of the Rise. The main goal of this bike was to basically create a bike that descends like a downhill bike and climbs like an XC bike. The nuts and bolts of how they've aimed to achieve this is they've gone with TQ's smallest HPR 40 motor that produces 40 Newton meters of torque and 200 watts of power. And then they've combined that with a small 290 watt-hour battery. Orbea actually did some back-to-back testing with their Enduro and their XC bike and found that on the same climb, it basically takes an additional 60 watts of rider input to climb the Enduro bike at the same speed as the XC bike. So the HPR 40 basically makes up that difference plus some. The bike is equipped with a Shimano Di2 drivetrain, a new Fox Neo shock, and Orbea's own RS control system, which is their own electronic dropper post and combined dropper lever and assist remote.
Here are some of the smart features with the dropper remote. So you can double press it super fast, and then you can push it down to a preset position. And you also can like prime the system where you press it once, and then whenever you're ready, you can put the post all the way down. Or you can treat it like a normal dropper and just put it to wherever you want.
All components are powered off the main battery, so you only have to charge the bike from one source. Also, I'm pretty sure that this is the first smart shock like this that we've seen where it pulls info from the dropper to know what position it's at, as well as the speed, power, and cadence from the motor to better adapt to the trail. Orbea is launching the Rallon RS with just 2 builds that are definitely top tier and priced accordingly. There will be build options available when ordering the bike, and like any other Orbea, you can fully customize the paint job. And then as for weight, which I'm sure a lot of people are really curious about with this bike in front of me weighed in at 39.5 pounds, so that's about 2 to 2.5 pounds more than the regular Rallon Enduro bike. And then we actually tested the Rise LT last year, and that came in around 3 pounds heavier. All right, so I've got the afternoon to do one ride on the Rallon RS. I'm at familiar trails I ride all the time, and my plan is to go out and just go for a normal ride. See if I can kind of do the same amount of laps I normally would on my Enduro bike and focus on what my stats are going to be like and just how the ride experience compares to that of a regular Enduro bike. Okay, I just wrapped up doing a very regular ride I would do at these trails, and my stats were I did 10 miles and basically just over 3,000 feet of climbing, and I ended up with the battery right at 50%, which I thought was kind of unbelievable. If you double that, you're basically getting roughly 6,000 feet of climbing and around 20 miles, which very admirable. I think that I'm not doing rides that big on a regular bike. One thing to definitely note is that I was trying hard.
I'm definitely still putting in a good effort right now, though. I mean, my heart rate's at 165, which is pretty high for me.
Like, my input felt fairly equal to what I'm doing on my normal bike when I come ride these trails. The climbs are really punchy. When I look at Strava and I look at a few segments, pretty much on every climbing segment, my speed was higher with the Rallon RS. So it's small. We're not talking like a huge difference. And I would say that's a good way to look at the experience of riding this bike in general, especially climbing. Descending, I mean, it's a long travel enduro bike. Like, you're getting a very capable bike, super fun to ride. It rips really hard. I mean, even just for doing one ride today, I think I did about 7 descents, shorter classic SoCal descents, but it was a really good time. I started off riding, trying to kind of stay in all 3 different assist modes and trying to bounce between them and, you know, not like put too much strain on the system, thinking it's smaller, the battery's smaller. And I got to about 2,000 feet of climbing and was like, I might as well put this thing in the highest assist profile at this point because I'm not really burning through the battery. And you definitely get a little bit more of a helping push up the hill. Like, I think I would ride this bike primarily in the highest assist level it offers. If I kind of break it down from a regular bike to each of the 3 assist profiles you have, each time I went up to having more help from the motor, I basically was shifting up a gear. That was the difference. So we're not talking even like an SL e-bike, definitely not a full power e-bike, where those bikes, to me, they kind of pull you up the hill, especially when you hit steep punches and you can really feel the torque and the extra watts those bikes provide pulling you up. This thing, it is noticeable. Like, I rode it off a few times and there is a difference, obviously, turning the motor on. It's subtle, but it definitely does more than I thought this motor system and battery would do just looking at it on paper. I think it's really easy to know that TQ has their HPR 50 and HPR 60 motors and just immediately jump it like, why would you not put that on this bike? But again, I was pretty impressed by this thing. It definitely does more than you might assume.
I think too, like climbing, you kind of naturally like chop at the pedals more. This feels like it makes up that bit of lull at the top of the pedal stroke.
So I feel like a lot of people, their first thing is going to want to know why Orbea didn't do a bigger battery and a bigger motor, which was kind of my first thought. Having ridden the bike, I think that, like I said, this motor package is more capable than you might think just comparing numbers. I think the reality is if you put, say, the HPR 50 or the 60 motor in this bike, or you start going to, you know, a bigger battery, you're adding weight, and pretty soon you're basically just ending up with SLE bikes that we have currently. And that's not the goal of this bike in the way I see, and I think definitely what Orbea's goal was with developing it. Like, they're trying to add another category to e-bikes, really. And this is below what we currently think of as SL bikes. Just to kind of throw some like stats to that, if you went up to an HPR 50 motor, you're adding 1.5 pounds. You're going up to an HPR 60, you're adding 1.67 pounds. So pretty quickly, you're adding a lot more weight, and then you're going to need to add a bigger battery to feed power to that thing. Probably the biggest questions that I wanted to try to understand and answer today was, who is a bike like this for, and like how would I, or how do I see other riders applying it? Because there's really no other bikes like it. It's kind of creating its own category. And as I was riding and thinking about it, I think that this is a bike for somebody who wants an enduro bike. They want a bike that they can ride proper trails on. I think it's for somebody who still wants to get a workout in, because that's what's going to require to get this bike up the hill. I think it's for somebody who wants a bike that's got a lot of control and stability, because it is noticeable having that lower hung weight from the motor. One thing I probably didn't add in there is that on the Rallon Enduro, you can add those BB weights, which adds 1.2 pounds. This motor adds basically double that. So just in case anybody's wondering, this is heavier than the analog Enduro version. I think this is also for somebody who really grabs onto that idea of getting a regular bike experience, but being able to go a little bit further and ride a little bit more. Maybe not in the normal e-bike sense where we're always kind of talking about, you know, big adventure rides and going faster and all those things. It's not in that same realm, but it is more and bigger riding than you would just do on a regular bike. Personally, I've been getting really into riding heavier bikes. I think that they offer a lot more confidence and stability descending. This bike for me is kind of in the world I've been thinking about with e-bikes. Like, I like getting a workout. I prioritize my descent, and I like a bike that is really capable there. But pedaling a heavy bike up the hill is not always realistic, especially day in and day out. Like, I think that's where currently e-bikes really fit nicely for a lot of riders. It gives you another experience for sure, but it also can fit in well with doing regular rides. This thing to me is super intriguing. Like, I think a lot of riders probably won't get it, especially if they see an e-bike and it doesn't have a ton of power and a ton of range and just not really understand it. I think that this maybe is a glimpse sort of into the future for me personally. Like, keep saying it all day. I think 8, 10, maybe only 5 years from now, who knows, we're gonna have bikes that look very similar to the Rallon RS, except I think they're gonna have a full power motor and a full size battery. For the time being, as somebody who likes to pedal, I do appreciate having a bike that requires me to put in energy, but seeing the stats I put up today, being like, wow, I could have done double the ride today. I probably would have been spent by the end of it, but there's no way I would have ever achieved that on my regular bike coming here. I just wanna be like, don't at me about the Neo Shock. All I did was ride the bike. We didn't do any setup, I don't know. It felt fine, okay? I think on top of how this bike maybe kind of lands in its own new category, the integration of everything was also really impressive. The dropper, like all the features you get with that. Everything's kind of in beta mode for this bike right now currently. Like, the focus today was more just getting to experience what the ride characteristics were, but same with like the shock. The shock was crazy firm. The fact that it's powered off of the battery itself, I think is kind of the future as well. So all of those little details like definitely kind of add up to making this bike different than really not an e-bike and like not your same analog experience. All right, that wraps up a very first ride look of Orbea's new Rallon RS. It's definitely a bike that piqued my interest in a lot of ways today, but I'm really curious what everybody else out there thinks. What do you think of a bike like this? How might you go out and use it? And for more mountain bike news and reviews, you can head to vitalmtb.com. Cheers.